Call the meeting back to order. It is a special meeting set for 3 o'clock. We are at 3:05, I believe. And this is a special meeting. This is a hybrid special meeting being held under Section 26 of the Planning Act. The purpose of the special meeting is to provide the public with an opportunity to discuss the revisions that may be required to the official plan. Any person may attend the meeting and/or make written or verbal presentation or submit ideas and feedback for consideration. And at this time, I have provision for pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we need approval of the agenda. Councillor Smyber, Councillor Grantham, all in favor? Carried. And first off, we will have a county official plan update, and that is going to be Abby. I believe you're going to start.
Yes, thank you through the warden to council. So I do have a PowerPoint that I'm going to be presenting in conjunction with the report. Thanks. You can jump right to the next slide. Thank you. All right, so as the warden mentioned, the purpose of today's meeting is that it's a statutory requirement of the Planning Act and the first step of an official plan update process. The meeting essentially allows members of the public to identify suggested revisions to the official plan and for staff to seek direction from council to proceed with the official plan update. Next slide, please. So what is the county official plan? It is a comprehensive document that includes goals, policies, and land use schedules, addressing matters of provincial and county interest. It also sets the framework for land use decisions, detailed planning, and the preparation of official plans and zoning bylaws at the local municipal level, which are typically a bit more prescriptive than our county official plan. Next slide, please. Why update the official plan? So Section 26 of the Planning Act provides a number of requirements for when an official plan is updated, most notably including the requirement for conformity with provincial plans and consistency with policy statements, including the provincial planning statement. And as council is aware, we did have a new provincial planning statement that came into force on October 20th of 2024. I would just note that our current official plan was approved with ministry modifications on July 7th of 2023. So we are dealing with a relatively up-to-date document, which is great. So the scope of this exercise will be a little bit more scaled down in comparison to our last county official plan review. Next slide, please. So official plan update subject areas. We're going to walk through our 4 main topics, starting with agriculture. So the main changes that we're going to be making under this theme include implementing an agricultural systems approach, which aims to support both the agricultural land base and the viability of the agri-food network. So a bit of an economic development component, and to include policies that speak to additional residential units in prime agricultural areas, because the new PPS does provide policy direction in that regard, which is great. Moving along to housing. We will be looking to implement the recommendations of the Attainable Housing Review, as well as reviewing our existing ARU policies to ensure that they align with the Planning Act and the PPS, as there have been a number of changes in that regard over the last 3 or so years. Moving along to economy. The county will be reviewing and updating employment area policies to ensure alignment with the new PPS and changes that were recently made to the Planning Act. We will also be implementing the land use recommendations of the CBRE Tourism Toolkit, which was a joint project with Planning and Economic Development. On the growth and development front, the county will be updating population, housing, and employment projections to be based on the Ministry of Finance projections, which is a requirement of the new provincial planning statement. As well, the update will include policies that address the privately initiated requests for settlement area boundary expansions that are a result of the removal of the requirement for local comprehensive reviews. So the official plan update process, I have included a timeline on the next slide. that kind of just demonstrates where we are in the process right now, which is project initiation. So following council's direction to proceed with the official plan update, we would be moving into phase 2, which is the background reports and policy formulation. In terms of next steps, we're going to be looking for direction from council, whether to proceed with an update to the official plan, starting the background work, as I previously mentioned. We're going to get the ball rolling on the consultation and engagement process, as well as the drafting of the official plan amendment. And then in terms of consultation and engagement, I want to make council aware that staff have circulated notice of project initiation to MMAH, prescribed agencies, local municipalities, as well as Indigenous communities. And we will be engaging with the Planning Advisory Committee in the coming days regarding the first advisory committee meeting pertaining to this project. I also want to note that the report before you was prepared and posted on the agenda prior to any agency or public input. However, we did receive some correspondence that I'm going to summarize as follows. So first, we received a submission from the Lake Huron primary water supply system, which note that our growth projections will be reviewed and considered as part of their master plan exercise. And they highlighted that planning and development in this area is of interest to them, given potential impacts on the regional water supply system, including transmission pipelines and associated infrastructure, which is situated in Middlesex County. Additionally, the municipality of Middlesex Center submitted a letter in support of the project as a first step in providing a degree of policy certainty to area municipalities, given the changing provincial legislative and policy environment, which has created challenges for municipalities, as we can all appreciate. The letter also noted the importance of partnerships between area municipalities and the county, and that the county official plan maintain flexibility for local development goals and objectives. We also received one submission from a member of the public who essentially was just inquiring about changes being proposed, and staff followed up with that person. Additionally, my report provides more information pertaining to the official plan update process, as well as the project scope. In addition to the 2 recommendations, being that the report be received for information, and that in accordance with Section 26 of the Planning Act, staff be directed to proceed with the official plan update. And that is it for me. I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I do have to ask if there's any comments from the public at this time. No comments from the public. Thank you. Questions from council. Councillor Grantham.
Thank you. Just 2 real quick questions. The ARUs in prime agriculture area, not to get specific, would that be part of a severance or just an additional residential unit without a severance? Because I've received a number of calls from people wanting to sever a small parcel for a residence. So I know it's a technical question, but there's some.
Yeah, thanks for your question through the warden. So the intent of the provincial planning statement is for those ARUs to be accommodated on a single lot.
Okay.
So no severance involved.
Okay. Thank you. And then my last question, I don't know who else, but as you know, Strathroy Caradoc's been probably for the last 2 years doing a settlement boundary review. So what I read here is that the changes regarding the boundary expansion, and I guess, well, primarily the boundary expansion kind of stops everything for lack of a better word, right? 'Cause the way I understand it is that anyone can apply for a settlement boundary expansion if their land is adjacent to a current settlement boundary. So my question is, what does that do to someone like Strathroy Caradoc, who's been undergoing a settlement boundary review for 2 years and we've more or less stopped?
Thank you for your question. So I think our opinion is that you can still proceed with reviewing your settlement area boundaries on the municipal side of things, but essentially it allows for landowners to come forward with privately initiated requests, as you mentioned. So it's kind of a twofold process. But yeah, I'm not really sure.
Through the word, Abby's correct. Certainly our staff recommendation would be for municipalities still to holistically look at, how much growth are you anticipating? How much growth are we anticipating? And where's the right location for that from a servicing, from an impact on agriculture, road network, all those kind of, good planning principles. In addition to that, however, you're right. Individual people can put forward submissions for growth to target their property. I think my recommendation would be, if a municipality has done that comprehensive work, that in some respects is the answer to the application from someone. These are the areas where we believe the municipality is going to grow and it's best to grow, but you can't stop someone from applying.
Okay, other questions? Councillor McMillan.
Yes, I wanted to go back to the issue of the ARUs. I know that from Abby's presentation to Tim Center Council a short time ago was that all ARUs should be subordinate to the existing residents, meaning that they're smaller. We've been getting a number of people, not necessarily formally yet, but are going down the path of having something that is substantially bigger in some cases or slightly bigger. Is it going to be, maybe this is a difficult question to answer, but would it at any point be up to the municipality to determine the size of that? Or is there a coordinated approach through either Ontario or Middlesex County to establish just exactly what those parameters are?
Yeah, thank you for your question through the warden. So the direction in the new provincial planning statement is that the ARU be subordinate. So that's at the provincial level. In terms of how the municipality chooses to regulate ARUs, that would likely be done through your zoning bylaw. I will say that we have had situations where people have built a new dwelling that they've essentially had become the primary dwelling, and then the existing dwelling become the ARU because it's significantly smaller. It really is a case-by-case basis, but in terms of how the municipality will regulate those sizes, it would be done through your zoning bylaw. But again, just to reiterate, the direction that we've gotten from the province is that the ARU be subordinate. Thank you.
Councillor Mayhew.
Thank you very much, Warden. To the presenter, Middlesex County is bordered by other counties that have approved a 50-acre severance from a farm parcel. And of course, we at present are still at 100 acres. Technology has affected the agricultural industry more than any other industry in business. We are getting higher yields off the same amount of land. The yields are exorbitant to what they once were 50 years ago. Southwest Middlesex has just recently had an $80 million investment on 38 acres of land. Land prices are exceptionally high for young farmers to get into business. They cannot afford 100 acres, but there's many family members that would sign the papers for 50 acres to bring that down. They will pay $1 million for $2 million for such a parcel, but they cannot pay the land prices at 100 acres. Another thing that I'm concerned about, not all the land in Middlesex County is A1. I can show you the peaks of Mosa in Southwest Middlesex, and you're lucky you could even walk the terrain, let alone farm the terrain. And has there been any consideration to address those concerns that have been expressed by many people? Or have the lobbyist groups, are they just positioning themselves in an inflexible position? Could you comment on that?
Through the warden, if I may, Abby wasn't involved in our last OP review. So the issue of agricultural size, as council will recall, was something that was both studied. We brought in on board an agronomist who did an analysis for Middlesex County. The policy in the provincial policy statement basically talks about, doesn't say 40 hectares, 100 acres. It talks about size that's predominant, it talks about agricultural practices and whatnot. So based on what's sort of best practice that a couple of other counties had done, we brought somebody on board. They worked with our plan advisory committee, and the recommendation was essentially 40 hectares, 36 or somewhere in there was sort of what the math bore out. County council did look at that issue and went back and forth, I think, and settled on the 40 hectares, maintain the 40 hectares in the county's official plan. There's not, be my submission, there's nothing in the new provincial planning statement that changes that policy. So I would not, from a staff's perspective, envision that a new recommendation would come forward. It is, however, up to council to identify matters that you would like to be examined, and then staff would work on that as directed, of course.
Other questions from council?
No.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that, if it was the wish of council that, I'll back up a little bit. I wasn't on county council when it was brought to council before, but my understanding is it went around the table to a vote. And it was a weighted voting, and it did not go through, is my understanding, and if that's wrong, I stand corrected. But it was voted on. So if it's the desire of this council that that's something we want to do, is to have 50 acres recognized as individual parcels and splitting 100, do we have the option to do that?
I'm going to be careful to not wander into the role of a clerk. I think if Marcy can speak about sort of the procedural part of it, generally official plan amendments are, the official plan amendment number 3 was dealt with. Now you're going to be potentially contemplating official plan amendment number 4. I think that policies can change between official plan amendments. So I think it's within the purview of council to consider differences from the previous official plan amendment, but that's in a general sense of how a planner would approach it. I won't speak for the clerk.
Well, I would agree with Dirk's comments, and it's a new term of council also, so it wouldn't be a reconsideration of a previous decision.
So as a follow-up, just for clarity, if that was a motion we wanted to pass around here, that's something we could vote on and that could be incorporated into the official plan, or that's outside of the plan?
That's a Dirk.
If I may, through the warden, I guess I would, from a staff perspective, are probably, if we had our ask, it would be that if that's something that is important to council, that they direct staff to study it and bring back information, as opposed to sort of making a decision today. Today is really the initial meeting where council is being asked to give direction to staff to do the amendment or not. So if it was something that was important, we would study it at certainly at your direction.
Okay, so as a follow-up, is that something we could consider bringing forth, asking for a staff report to entertain that? I don't know what the appetite around the horseshoe is for that.
I think from a procedural standpoint, you may be able to add to the motion to direct staff to proceed with the OPA, to add that as a consideration to study as they. I can work on that language, and with Rebecca, we could put on the screen, but that would be procedurally.
I don't want to rush this report, but I'd be prepared to make that a motion. To move that with the amendment.
Yeah, we are looking for a seconder on that. Councillor Mayhew. Yeah, it's just give the clerk a minute here to draft the motion. Councillor Mayhew.
Yeah, first I'd like to thank Councillor Clark for bringing that forward. It is interesting conversation, but I do stress that there are young people that want to get into farming and they're not getting into farming. And if you look at Chatham, Kent, Sarnia, Lambton, they have that 50 acres in their official plan, and they are stellar agricultural communities. Again, technology has changed. We are getting more from less as technology increases, and I hope planning take that request seriously and when they come back, be very objective in their findings. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this while we're waiting for the wording? No, all right, we'll just wait for the wording then.
So while we're waiting through the warden, that for clarity, this is just for them to look at it. We're not proposing that it be passed. We're just asking for a staff report around it.
To consider, right? Motions to consider. Okay.
Dirk, can you take a look at that wording? Okay, you can come up, that's fine.
Sorry, is there any more questions on the original presentation? So we can go ahead and vote on this.
The motion to direct, and then we'll do a second motion.
Okay. So the motion we have in front of us is County Official Plan Update, Section 26. Meeting report be received for information, and that in accordance with Section 26 of the Planning Act, staff will be directed to proceed with the official plan update. And then we will deal with this other part. Do we have okay, Councillor Grantham, Councillor Brennan, in favor? Opposed? No, it's carried. And we'll just wait for the second part.
So the motion would be that staff be directed.
Wait, just make sure everybody knows again. She's just gonna read out the motion.
So that staff be directed to include consideration of 50-acre agriculture properties as part of the OPA process.
I'll move that.
Sorry, moved by Councillor Clark, seconded, I believe it was already seconded by Councillor Mayhew, correct? Yeah, let's just. All right, it's up now, make sure everybody's aware. Okay, in favor of that. Sorry, do it again. Opposed? It is carried. Yeah. Okay, now we do have just one item of business, and that is bylaws. Bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this meeting. First and second reading, Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Grantham. All in favor? Carried. And third and final, Councillor McMillan and Councillor Smyber. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And I'm just looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Councillor Smyber.